Hey, what's going on, guys? It's BrainBean here again, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Gamdius Hermes P1 RGB mechanical keyboard. This is a keyboard that comes in at a really good price point, so I'm interested to see what we can get for this kind of money. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at the Hermes P1. Starting as always with construction and design, the Gamdius Hermes P1 is a 104 key mechanical keyboard with an exposed switch design. The switches are mounted onto a weighty brushed aluminum backplate that comes in a nice gunmetal gray, and the thick aluminum backplate allows for almost zero flex when smashing down on the board. At the corner there are some cutouts which on their own add a little bit of style, but they're actually where the detachable wrist rest connects to the keyboard. The detachable wrist rest is pretty thin feeling, and I did find myself wishing that it extended out a little bit more, but all things considered, the shape and contour feel pretty good, and the latching mechanism secures it to the board nicely, making for a solid connection. There's also a fairly non-intrusive logo above the LED indicators, but because it's in that brown color, I don't find it to be that bothersome. As the name implies, the Hermes P1 RGB does have full RGB illumination. It comes with 12 preset lighting effects, and it does have limited customizability with the Hera software. The lighting itself looks pretty good, and the TTC RGB switches achieve pretty nice looking colors, although they don't fully illuminate the clear switch housings quite as well as Cherry or Kale do. Keep in mind that the flickering you're seeing is from the camera and is not something that will be visible during use. The keycaps are textured ABS plastic. For the most part, the font is pretty standard except for a few more stylized characters, but it's nowhere near as over-stylized as others out there. The backlighting on the keycaps is pretty good, although there were two keycaps that didn't allow for their keys to be fully illuminated. The Hermes P1 uses TTC switches. I got to test the brown version of these switches during my review of the Swera FX. I hadn't heard of TTC at the time, but after doing a bit of research, I found that they've been around since 1998, but have been making mouse switches and only recently began producing mechanical keyboard switches. TTC stands for Trantech Electronics Co. The Hermes P1 uses TTC blue switches, which just like the browns, I'm pretty happy with the overall experience. The one thing that jumps out at me about the TTC blues is just how light the tactile bump is. When typing quickly, at times it felt like I was typing on a linear switch that had a clicky noisemaker, if that makes any sense. I attribute this to the smooth action of the switch. Even though these switches feel pretty nice to type on, they do come with quite possibly the most key wobble that I have ever seen. And these switches are advertised to have a lifespan of 50 million keystrokes. Here's a quick sound test for you guys of the TTC blues. In terms of extras, the Hermes P1 isn't going to give you any dedicated macro keys, but it does give you media controls by way of the function key. I personally like to have at least a few macro keys, but that's really up to your preference. You do get the wrist rest like I mentioned earlier, and it does have full end key rollover with a Windows lock mode for gaming. On the underside of the keyboard, you'll find 5 rubberized pads and 2 rubberized extendable legs to keep the keyboard in place during use. There's also a cable routing system to help you keep your desk a little bit more tidy, and lastly, there's actually a keycap puller hidden away under the board. I've never seen a company do this before, and I actually really like it. It's smart, and it just makes sense to be able to keep the keycap puller with the keyboard instead of losing them all the time. The braided cable feels durable enough, and it ends in a simple USB connector. If you take the Hermes P1 RGB at face value, you're probably going to come to the same conclusion that I did. It's okay, and at its core, it has what I would want out of a basic RGB mechanical keyboard. And while it doesn't really give you any extra features to speak of, at least they didn't cut corners on what you do get. Now with that in mind, let's take a look at the price. The Hermes P1 has an MSRP of $99, which I would say, given the performance of the switches and solid feel of the keyboard, isn't unreasonable. But at that price point, it's oversaturated with competition of varying quality and features. However, Gamdius currently has this board on sale on Amazon for $65, and for that price, I cannot recommend this keyboard enough. You'll be hard-pressed to find any RGB mechanical keyboard with any sort of quality at that price, especially one that comes with any kind of software and not just onboard controls. It might not have all the fancy features of higher-end mechanical keyboards out there, but if you want an RGB mechanical keyboard that isn't trash and don't want to spend much, with the sale price, this would be the way to go. Well, that's it for the video, guys. Let me know in those comments down below what you think about this keyboard, especially considering that $65 price. Personally, I think it's a really good deal. You don't find mechanical keyboards with full RGB, especially with software that goes along with it, for 65 bucks. So I highly recommend you guys take advantage of that sale price if you're looking for a cheap mechanical keyboard. Consider giving this video a like if you enjoyed it to show your support, and if you're new here at the channel, you like what you see, click that subscribe button. I've got a lot more videos coming for you in the near future. You can also follow me on Twitter at BrainBean Gaming to stay up to date with what's going on with the channel. I also post updates on builds and things like that I have going on, so if you guys are interested, that's there for you. Well, as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.